Avenues of approach are easily observable by the defender. 360-degree fire coverage and protection from attack. Engineer efforts, prioritizing camouflage, concealment, cover, deception measures, and counter-mobility efforts to disrupt attacks. Large logistical caches. Sanctuary from which to launch local attacks and counterattacks. Increased survivability. Concealed subterranean facilities hinder the ability of friendly forces to gather accurate damage assessments and other information.
On 30 April, the 77th Infantry Division was ready to assume the attack on the Maida Escarpment, and the Japanese met the Americans with over 1,000 rounds of artillery and mortar fire on their frontline positions. Like at Kakuzu, the 24th Corps' attack stalled. Even though the 77th made some progress in the center, the 1st Marine Division was halted in the west, and the 7th Infantry Division was stalemated in the east on Kochi Ridge. The defending 62nd Division was at half strength. The Japanese offset this numerical disadvantage by preparing a deliberate defense that took advantage of the forbidding terrain. They held the high ground, compelling U.S. forces to attack uphill. Learning from weeks of tenacious fighting on Okinawa, the U.S. soldiers and Marines modified their tactics. They used heavy weapons to suppress or neutralize small areas, and then pushed a small salient into the Japanese lines. They developed new cave fighting tactics and techniques, employing artillery, tanks, and a combination of flamethrowers and explosives to destroy the enemy's complex battle positions. Despite these new tactics and techniques, U.S. forces were only able to make limited progress advancing at Hacksaw Ridge. During one of the most brutal attacks, an Army medic rescued 75 of his wounded comrades. For his actions, Corporal Desmond T. Doss, a conscientious objector, was awarded the Medal of Honor. Facing the collapse of another defensive line, the Japanese leaders disagreed on the potential courses of action. Cho advocated for a large-scale counterattack. Yahara insisted on defensive attrition. Ushijima eventually sided with Cho, convinced that a successful assault targeting American supply lines would be a decisive blow in the battle. The Japanese goal for the second counteroffensive was to destroy the 24th Corps and neutralize the U.S. Navy offshore in a series of coordinated attacks. Ushijima ordered a land attack with amphibious assaults, with simultaneous kamikaze and air attacks directed against the fleet. Over the 3rd and 4th of May, Japanese forces sank or damaged 17 ships, inflicted over 600 naval casualties, and bombed shore installations, including Yantan Airfield. On 4 May, the 32nd Army attempted amphibious assaults behind American lines. To support these assaults, Japanese artillery moved out of their caves and into the open. By doing so, they were able to conduct preparatory fires with 13,000 rounds in support. But effective American counter-battery fire destroyed nearly 60 Japanese artillery pieces. The Americans were again able to conduct a hasty defense and defeat the amphibious assault. By midnight on 5 May, Ushijima accepted the fact that his counterattack had failed. The Japanese forces had suffered massive casualties, with over 7,000 dead in a matter of hours. The air attack had also cost the Japanese the loss of 131 aircraft. With thousands of casualties and vital ammunition, artillery, and equipment expended in the disastrous counterattack, the Japanese resumed their attritional approach, just as Yahara recommended. By this point in the battle, the Americans had suffered more than 20,000 casualties. 6 weeks of nearly continuous fighting resulted in ever-increasing cases of combat fatigue. The American forces had extended their line at Maida, Kochi, and Awacha, thus making their lines of communication more secure and gaining more favorable terrain. With these gains, 10th Army launched another offensive on 11 May. 2 days later, American troops captured the formidable Nishihara, better known as Conical Hill. Rising 145 meters above the Yanabaru coastal plain, This key terrain was the eastern anchor of the main Japanese defenses and was occupied by about 1,000 Japanese troops. Meanwhile, on the opposite coast, the 1st and 6th Marine Divisions secured Sugarloaf Hill. Capture of these two key positions exposed the Japanese around Shuri Castle on both sides. Estimating that the 32nd Army had expended most of their reserves in the counterattack, Buckner planned to commit all of 10th Army.